Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Fluffenbusters, where we put on a movie we love and create our own feature-length commentary. Today, I'm on a quest for justice for three people. Firstly, I'm here to defend the script and story choices of one Sylvester Stallone, accused of letting his ego destroy the 1995 classic Judge Dredd. Secondly, I'm here to defend the acting performance of one Rob Schneider, accused of letting his baffling overacting ruin the flow of the 1995 classic Judge Dredd. And finally, in this first recording of 2026, I'm here to do a better job talking about the 1995 classic Judge Dredd than I ever did in the chaotic Lord of the Rings recording tracks. And I can say that honestly because I'm the poor sod who had to edit them. Ladies and gentlemen, the court is in session. All rise, please, all rise. Chief Judge Big D has appeared. How are you, Your Honor?
I am full of Mexican food at the moment, so I could become a very sleepy judge very quickly.
It's almost the traditional look of the British judge, isn't it?
Yeah.
Long hair, nodding off.
Yeah, it sadly is. But I must admit, I have a soft spot for this movie in a big way.
Yes.
For many reasons. I may have to leave you on your own, though, to defend Rob Schneider.
Oh, no. There's something really important. So one of the reasons that I wanted to do this, not only was this a chance to re-record an alternative, if you like, first episode, because the first episode that most of the people on this channel will have seen is the Carl Urban Dredd.
Yeah.
But also, this is a good opportunity for me to praise someone else on YouTube, and that's a guy called Oliver Harper. Now, Dee, you probably know about Oliver Harper, but for those who don't, Oliver does a lot of making-ofs, retrospective making-ofs, little documentaries covering films from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. He is about as close as you'll get to a YouTube Barry Norman film 89, a classic movie style show. And about 2 years ago, he released a little video, a little extra from a documentary he'd done about 80s action heroes. And he had on Stephen E. D'Souza, who was one of the writers of Judge Dredd.
Oh.
And in about 2 minutes, Stephen said something which has changed my entire opinion of this film and of the two people that we're probably going to be focusing on, which is Stallone and Schneider.
Okay.
And I think that the prevailing view of Judge Dredd has always been a little bit skewed. Nobody's ever been quite sure. But just a little extra fact that Stephen adds really does change this up. So I'm good to go whenever you are, Your Honor.
Yeah.
I'm not going to call you Your Honor all the way through this, by the way.
That's good. My ego doesn't need add anything to it. Right. So where are we starting up from? Is it from where the Judge Dredd logo pops up?
Yeah, I reckon. So as soon as the Synergy label closes, the screen goes to black, and then, the Judge Dredd title sequence starts. So we might as well start from there.
Okay, I shall wind mine back a little bit. And go.
Lovely. Now, let me set the stage for you. This is really important. Synergy is a really small production company. Now, you all know the classic look of production companies, people running around, organizing everything, 500 assistants and producers running around with big cigars, like they rule the world. Well, Synergy is quite a small company. So what they did is they decided they were going to create this movie using this IP. They wrote it, they conceived of it, they did all of that out in the States. It was going to be shot in the UK. And because they're not that big a company, most of their folks were still based in America. There was nobody on the ground from a production point of view on the set. The only other thing I'll say at this point is not only did Synergy, the writers, the producers, conceive of this film as a PG film, a PG family-friendly film, but this film went into production with a Burger King Happy Meal deal tied into it and a Kenner toy deal baked into it.
Hmm.
And we'll come back to this later on during the film.
Absolutely. I would just point out that intro sequence though was pretty awesome. We had flashes of what at that point was the first 16, 17 years of Judge Dredd comics.
Yeah.
And the classic Judge Dredd logo. That's pretty cool.
Because of the problems that happened during the production, when it came to advertising the film, they got really stuck. Because it was a film that they couldn't advertise the way they wanted to. And they got a little bit confused. And funnily enough, just like the urban Dredd as well, sometimes a production will make a mistake and end up going down the wrong path. They designed their whole promotion around this film around comic books.
Yeah.
The problem being, the sort of fans that enjoyed comic books at that time were still mostly younger fans who couldn't actually see this film because of the rating.
Yeah.
And the older fans who would have appreciated this more weren't interested because they were being shown comic books. But to fans of 2000 AD, you're absolutely correct. It was a lovely way to show off where the Dredd comes from, the look of it, the feel of it. And it really does give an indication, at least at the start, that this is a film really for the comic book fans.
Absolutely. And even here, the look, I mean...
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It took a year to build this thing, this set, this living, breathing world. It was absolutely massive. And even though all of the transports and all of the cars look like they're out of Transformers Animated, it just looks beautiful. And I'll also say as well, Rob, at the start, look, there's no Stallone in shot. Underplayed, not overacting, just being a normal guy.
That's a good point. He's probably the least Rob Schneider I can remember him being in this movie.
Yes.
Yeah, he does play a bit of comic relief as the film goes on, but he's not as you'd think Rob Schneider from most of his output. He's actually fairly underselling things quite well.
He does. It's in this scene, and it'll be his final scene as well. It's almost like there's not somebody with him that's pushing him to overact. I wonder who that could be. Whilst we're doing this, by the way, the narration at the beginning was by James Earl Jones, which I thought was a brilliant nod. And whoever thought of that, credit to you. And we've also got the beautiful music of Alan Silvestri.
Yeah.
And the music for this film is just cracking.
And you know, watching this fly through of the Big Meg, I'd forgotten how good this is.
It is, isn't it?
This is... I mean, there's stuff we'll get to later on when we talk about that they've filed off some of the sharper edges.
Yeah.
Because of another set of films that came out a few years earlier. But, man, this is some good stuff, actually, especially for 95. This is...
Well, these are massive miniatures. It's a mix of massive miniatures and also this beautiful full set, this world. I should also say at this point as well, my input into this film, I do have a connection to it.
Okay.
I worked with somebody who was a grip on this film. So some of the stories that I will bring up later on are from his experience. And funnily enough, I did a little bit of research, and at least one or two of them I've been able to confirm as actually happening. So I've then been able to tie back, and I basically agree. Well, I believe in what the guy told me. So, but yeah, this was a beautiful set, wonderful set. However, it also required an awful lot of crew to make it work, and they worked really hard on this. And you can see that in the production design, the way it looks, the way it feels. Right up until now, this is looking absolutely A1.
Oh, yeah. And I always remember, because this was, Danny Cannon's second movie?
Yes, he did Young Americans first, and yeah, this was a real glow up as well. This was before Marvel movies took small directors and just plonked them into huge projects. This was a huge jump for him. However, Danny had been sort of famous for winning a competition in 2000 AD to design a movie poster for Dredd.
Okay.
So he'd clearly been a fan for a long time. Meanwhile, by the way, we have the unofficial follow-up to The Warriors with James Remar, who I know people will know him from The Warriors and Sex and the City, but I prefer to know him from Transformers 1, where he voices Zeta Prime.
Oh, yeah.
I wrote that down specially for this. I put time and effort into this. So, Dee, what do you think, watching this, what do you think about the Lawmasters?
I mean, they look almost ripped straight from the comics, from the late 80s, early 90s of Dredd. Because the Lawmasters, they've gone for a few evolutions. There was a period where they did have a second Dredd comic running alongside this one, alongside 2000 AD and the magazine. That was aimed at, well, it was tied into the film, to be fair.
Yeah.
And it had all those smoother edges rounded off and stuff that I mentioned before. But the Lawmasters, I mean, they look the part. They look like, yeah, it's a battle bike.
Yeah.
Because it's what the judges need. And even though Dredd has the more imposing costume out of all the judges, because it's Stallone, and he's the only one who can actually wear the damn thing, all the other costumes are pretty decent as well.
They're decent. They're interesting. They were designed by Versace, which always amazes me. And for the role they do, and for the characters that you're meant to believe they are portraying, the suits make no sense. They look stupid as hell, and I wouldn't last an hour in one of those. However, the look works, and you're right, on Stallone, it looks really good. And that's a reason why people they'll bring these to Comic-Cons, they'll dress up as them. If you see a bunch of Dredds at a convention, I guarantee you there'll be a bunch of guys wearing this.
Yeah.
It's very, very unique. And yes, if you look at it's a black body stocking with a load of gold tinfoil over the front, yes, it kind of looks weird. But at the same time, it has that comic feel. And it does work well in a lot of the lighting. And even the helmet as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's the recognizable Dredd helmet. There's actually not much about it that differs from the versions the comic version's gone through, and that's not been a stable design either. It's evolved over the years.
No. Yeah.
Even to the point where this came out, and Dredd had evolved massively since the late 70s. But
it's telling, though, that in order to do a lot of the later action scenes, Dredd does have to get rid of most of the gear.
Yes.
And he spends most of the time in the sort of black unitard, which does look a bit odd when you focus on it too much. But for a lot of these shots, especially, it almost feels like the suit was designed to be photographed whilst people were shooting a gun at that angle. The amount of shots that they just frame up with the gun out, and it does look really good in the background.
Oh, yeah.
This is, by the way, this is the expected, I think, life expectancy for a rookie in the Big Meg.
Yeah. And, I mean, I almost said Barbara Hershey.
Oh, sorry. That would be Diane Lane.
Yes, Diane Lane. She's actually a good Hershey.
She's a very good Hershey.
This film is weird because it's very much a grab bag of bits from Dredd's history at this point.
Yeah.
So you've got this is a bit of Block War. Hershey doesn't actually appear until the Judge Child saga, which comes after. It comes before the Apocalypse War arc. But by this point, she's actually a relatively recent character compared. So there's no Anderson in this. They've got Chief Justice Fargo.
Yep.
I think Magruder's there.
more of a cameo for those guys.
Yeah,
They're named, but you wouldn't assign any importance to hearing those names if you weren't a fan.
indeed. And you've got Armando Santos, Rico, and Rico only actually appears in a single strip.
Yeah.
Initially, and then he's appeared in some flashback material in the last few decades since this film. But otherwise, he only appears in a single strip, but his impact is just huge. Because it's one of the first times that Dredd kind of has some humanizing factors in play.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, if you're not aware, Dredd and Rico, Joe Dredd and Rico Dredd, they're clones of Chief Justice Fargo, the guy who established the judges at the dawn of the Mega Cities. And they're basically supposed to be the perfect judges, the perfect law enforcement officers for this era. They're intended to be, they're the prototypes for what's supposed to be a whole raft of cloned officers. That doesn't go anywhere. And also, Rico breaks bad. In the comics, they break it down so he actually has a run-in with a chemical agent that affects him. But and up to that point, he was actually the better judge than Joe. He was the better fighter, the better investigator. He surpassed his brother in all things. But then he fell quite dramatically. He took bribes.
Yeah.
He had relationships. He did all the stuff a judge shouldn't do because they're supposed to be held to a higher standard. I mean, they are. If you look at how the judges for most of the life of 2000 AD have been portrayed, you could easily think, oh, that's a Space Marine. And yeah, GW based an awful lot on the judges. You'll be shocked to hear, I know. But it's kind of fascinating that they took Rico and they made him the main villain of this film. When they could have done anything. I mean, the Urban Dread basically is a day in the life. This is very much not that. This is much more the big action spectacle. For better or worse.
I think they chose Rico because if they show you Rico, it better defines what Dredd is.
True.
And I think everyone involved hoped this would be the start of a multi-part series, a franchise. There was a lot riding on this. A lot of the people involved, Stallone especially, took a huge stake in this personally, I feel. Just on the interviews that he's given, the way he's spoken about it, the way he's talked about it. The problem is, I think, right at the start, I mentioned that Synergy had gone for a PG film. And this was meant to be family entertainment.
Yeah.
I'm going to butcher the name, Jürgen Prochnow, who's on the screen now.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. He's not exactly making jokes to the screen.
No.
No. Max von Sydow is not exactly known for his stand-up routine. The actors in this are making it very, very serious. And there's a quote from Stallone that's sort of gone down in infamy. But when he talked about this and he talked about the failings, he said that they were he always thought that there was a battle in this film because the filmmakers were trying to make it too serious. And it shouldn't have been that. It should have been less Hamlet and more Hamlet and eggs. And although that's gone, that's about as articulate as Stallone sometimes was at that time in his career, the fact was that if you're making a film that's meant to be family friendly and light and fluffy, then you don't make this film. But if you're then brought on board as a director to make a PG Dredd, then you make a PG Dredd. However, it's very clear from just these early scenes, this is a drama.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's some pathos. There's some seriousness. Stallone is underplaying it at this point. He's not gone too much over. And even Rob has mostly reined it in, even though I just realized in that last scene as well that Hershey actually gives Rob her helmet whilst he's being judged. Which, considering he's a tech expert and a hacker, is probably the last thing she should have done.
Yeah.
But at the moment, you've just had the comic relief that you think has been booted off unfairly. You've had a bunch of people killed, and now two very serious men are having a very serious conversation about society. Again, this is why I think some of the choices later in the film happened, because the studio realized, oh my goodness, this isn't a family blockbuster. How do we fix this?
Yeah, and can I bring up RoboCop?
Oh, no, please do, mate. Go for it.
Because one of the important things to mention when any conversation about Judge Dredd has to also talk about RoboCop, because Paul Verhoeven, RoboCop is a great film. RoboCop 2 is a daftly fun film, but a lot of the humor in those films, the gags and pokes that they take, are very Judge Dredd 2000 AD in their tone and style.
Yep.
And when this film came out, a lot of folks, rightly or wrongly, took the view that, well, they tried to make it more family friendly and a bit softer on the edges, because otherwise they'd be accused of ripping off RoboCop. Because at this point, Judge Dredd was a known property in the UK.
Yep.
Known in the comic scene in the States, but that was it. There wasn't really much of a broader acknowledgement of him. I mean, by this point, I think Pat Mills had begun. What was it? He was doing martial law, I think, for Dark Horse around this time.
Okay.
Which is basically Judge Dredd, but what if all the subtleties scrubbed off?
Yeah.
Shall we say? And it's frustrating because this film, if it had had more of that black humor in it, could have been good. But I think Synergy, because they wanted these, they were going for the marketing things, because they'd seen what RoboCop became.
Yeah.
By this point, because it had the tie-in cartoon, it had the toy line, it had video games, it had the sequel, and they looked for a way to do their own version, but starting it off from scratch as a more family-friendly endeavor, which sucks because it means that they've kind of straight away pissed off any fans of Judge Dredd.
Yeah.
Who want to come and see the character from the comics, it's like, oh, okay, that's not what I'm used to.
But the frustrating thing as well is that with the director then adding this sort of stuff in, I believe the studio had even said a mandate on not showing blood and not showing shooting scenes. Like there's a big controversy later on with the killing of the journalist, because Danny had assured the studio that, oh, don't worry, this won't be a problem with ratings because there's no blood. And yet the cut that they saw, the footage they saw, was about 2 minutes of them just getting shot to hell, Bonnie and Clyde style. So very much like the cut that we've just seen, where you see a gun but you don't see the impact. The problem is that he was pushing for that 18. He was pushing for that rough, that tough film. He was pushing for like a Carl Urban Dredd. And the problem is that if you have the production going for one film, the director going for another, and then the star realizing partway through what the studio is telling him, because of course Stallone is involved in this, he's the one who tries to pivot. And you see this in films a lot where they, like for instance, Transformers 1, a good example, starts off very, very light humor, lots of comedy, lots of B making silly noises. But by the end, it's actually quite mature. Now, if you market that to kids, they might get a little bit worried at the end. If you market that to to kids, then adults might not be interested. And of course, if you market it just to adults, kids won't be interested, and adults, well, they might be up for it, but you're not going to get the whole audience. I think what they wanted to find in this is the balance that they got right with Demolition Man. And it is amazing how much of Demolition Man works as a better family-friendly Dredd than Judge Dredd did, all the way down to the costumes, which I should also add. Sorry, D, I'm on a roll now.
No, crack on.
But look at the costume that he's wearing now. That's a better street judge costume, minus the over shoulders, than he's wearing on the streets. It looks good.
Yeah, I actually like a lot of the costuming in this movie. I mean, kind of like the precinct uniforms like this, they're great.
Yeah.
In another world, this would have been the sort of, and even Hershey in her take on, because she's wearing a more practical version of it than the one Stallone wore. It just works, you know.
Can I just say something quickly about Diane Lane? Because
yes,
she was at the beginning of a very interesting arc in Hollywood. Look, we're all adults here. We know how Hollywood works. We know that you've got at the moment, we've still got Flavor of the Month, Sydney Sweeney. And it's because when Hollywood realizes that an actor or actress looks a certain way and fulfills a certain role, that they become hugely important, and they're put everywhere and they're promoted on everything. Diane Lane had gone through the ranks. She'd been in a lot of stuff, but she was just about to hit a 10-year period where she was considered one of the most glamorous actresses in Hollywood. And people were fighting over themselves to cast her in films where she played the alluring, slightly older woman. And this is almost like the first one of those roles. But she does look stunning. But it's just odd that she didn't really break out with a breakout film. She really broke into the public consciousness with Dredd. And also, as I say that, Dredd just gives a really heartfelt comment about judging his brother or judging his friend. And again, I'm reminded this was meant to be a family comedy for kids. As we cut to the guy in the body bag rising up and killing someone. You see what I mean, though? It's like suddenly just from that simple guy saying, sorry, not simple guy, but from D'Souza saying we had a Happy Meal planned and we had a toy line planned. It's like, yes, you're absolutely right, D. They wanted that RoboCop buzz, but the thing was, RoboCop was unashamedly adult at the start, then skewed to kids. They intended to push this to kids, and already there's no way that this was going to get a child-friendly rating.
Yeah, I mean, I remember in the side comic they did based on this film setting, Dredd, although he shot people, it was always using stun rounds.
Yeah.
They replaced almost all the bad guys a big chunk of them were basically wearing animal costumes. It was a very weird strip, to be fair.
I'd imagine as well, trying to find the balance between this film and the comic. I think there was even a frame or two where Hershey and Dredd recognized the awkwardness of the kiss and agreed never to do it again, or something like that.
I think it was something like that, yeah.
So, music fans, if you've ever heard the song Hit Me With Your Rhythm Stick, that was Ian Dury and the Blockheads. So this is Ian Dury. It is Ian Dury, yes, it is.
It is. You know what? Anytime I've ever seen him in the films, I love it because he's just...
It's great.
Yeah.
And, of course, the whole joint is a nod to H.R. Giger. And this, well, in the credits, this is partially acknowledged as being Hammerstein from the ABC Warriors.
Yes.
It is partially just because of the way it credits writers and other creators involved in these. However, it is not Hammerstein.
No.
And this is the thing. I know other fans will have their grievances with this show and this movie. Mine is very simply that this is not Hammerstein.
No, it's a Hammerstein model of the ABC Warriors.
Yes.
Which is what he was. He was a part of a mass-produced run of robots, an NCO version, but there were lots of him.
I know. It's just a shame because the dark humor that came out of the ABC Warriors as well was so beautiful. And for those who don't know as well, one of the artists that was heavily involved in ABC Warriors was Simon Bisley. Simon Bisley was also heavily involved in the development of Lobo.
Yep.
So you know the sort of humor that you're going for with that. So to see this robot, and it's a beautiful creation, by the way. It is a fully practical robot. I think it took something like 9 puppeteers. Even the cast were freaked out by it. It does look beautiful. And its little look at its hand as it wakes up for the first time is the one sliver of, oh, maybe it was Hammerstein. He's just lost his brain and wondered where his hammer has gone to. But it is beautiful. Again, like as you said, Dee, as well, these are beautiful scenes. It's beautifully crafted. It's just maybe not got the right focus and attention.
That's a good way of putting it.
God, I'm coming out with more sense than I did in the entirety of the Lord of the Rings.
Sorry, I'm just admiring the sight of Rico and the ABC Warrior because, man, that's so good for the fact that it's all practical.
Yes.
It's kind of nuts.
It is. It's well designed. It's the sort of look that you would expect to get when the director truly cares about the franchise. And I think he genuinely did.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I think he was trying to mesh the two styles, so give Dredd a big screen sheen.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think it's a good look for the time. I don't think it certainly doesn't succeed at a lot of what it wants to do because of the issues you've mentioned.
Yeah.
But man, when it's hitting it right, it's hitting it right. And can I just point out these wonderful trucks that were I think they were created by Ford, and they even topped off an episode of Top Gear around this time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
They had Quentin and one of the other members of the team driving around. This was pre-Clarkson, Hammond and May. Yeah, this was the first era of Top Gear.
Maybe Tiff.
Yeah, that was it. It was Tiff and Quentin. They basically had them standing in the backs of a couple of one of these things, as a couple of them drove around the Top Gear track at the time. And it was, I mean, they look great. They're practical vehicles. You can see them moving around in the background. And if you were to tell me that they inspired the design of animated Optimus Prime, yep, I'd believe you. Such a Dredd approach to things.
They're doing a shorthand here. So a shorthand for Dredd, a shorthand for how they approach crime, a shorthand for how they deal with idiots, a shorthand for everything. It's good, it's effective. It's just, it shows that they're desperately trying to introduce the world they're trying to introduce the audience to that world. I will say lots of people have agreed with me on this, even in the documentary about the film, that these armed police, these like internal investigations troopers, look absolutely badass.
Oh yeah, and I think it's the SJS in the strip. They have a separate uniform to the rest of the judges.
Yeah,
I think their shoulder pads and the actual helmets, rather than the eagle iconography, they actually have a skull.
Oh,
instead, and their badges, in addition to their name, actually have a separate, like the side judges have a side name on. There's, say, SJS.
Nice.
So they're to better delineate them from regular judges. But
it is a shame then that they do sort of remind me of the troopers from He-Man, Masters of the Universe.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've said this and other people have as well. The designs of some of the troopers look not generic, but they look like the sort of costumes that you would see turn up in other other films, other low-budget films. But
yes, they're good designs, but they're so generic. They're not really locked to anything. It's a shame, because I'd actually have loved to have seen this film do a proper take on an SJS judge. So without not looking like, well, as stormtroopery as these ones do.
Yeah.
Or as Death Trooper, I suppose. The Hall of Justice. There's something about a building that's just a massive eagle that towers over the Statue of Liberty.
Yes. The Statue of Liberty tends to get short shrift in the dark future style films. It's always relegated behind 3 or 4 larger skyscrapers, which funnily enough seems to be happening in New York at the moment with some of their more classical buildings. They're just disappearing, I suppose, below progress.
Yeah, there's this obsession with building higher and higher and bigger, and some of those classic buildings, I mean, in fairness, some of them probably do need, they had a finite lifespan, shall we say, but you do see some buildings get taught. I mean, my background is in archaeology, so even I take issues with how some of the listing system works in this country.
Yeah.
Because there's sometimes you see a building that's listed and go, but why? But there are times when it's fully justified. And it's a shame when sometimes the tide of progress just buries beautiful structures. But
I'm just going to add some praise here for Joanna Miles, who plays Magruder. It's great. It's great casting. I really wish she could have been a bit more Magruder-ish. But they're doing the best they can do.
They do.
And also as well, I don't know if it was ever commented on at the time, but the irony that a member of one of the wealthiest families on the planet is playing one of the cadets there who helps out Hershey.
Really?
Yeah, Balthasar Getty. Of the Getty family. He has had a decent career.
Yeah.
He's one of those actors that's been able to afford to do whatever he wants. You know, he's not worried about money, clearly.
Yeah.
But he's turned up in films over the years, and for a long time, although Diane Lane did well, Stallone sort of disappeared from larger films. Getty was almost the one that people would comment on in terms of, hey, did you know this person was in this film?
I've just realised that I think is it Angus McFine's one of the fighter squadron leads from Star Wars.
Yes, he's Judge Silver.
My brain had missed that somehow. Small.
It is great to be a British character actor, isn't it?
It really is.
You just turn up. You're at one moment you're in an X-wing, the next you're in a Judge Dredd courtroom, looking at Stallone.
Yeah.
Growling at the camera.
Man, the thing is, it is a shame that we didn't, because they've got Silver, Magruder, Griffin, Fargo. I mean, when Judge Dredd started in the comics, he'd been dead for like 50 years, more or less. And we've seen him since in flashbacks, but he died when Joe and Rico were still cadets. Griffin, all that. They all have their own distinct arcs.
Yeah, they're trying to smash them together to try and concentrate the experience. I know what you mean. It's a worry, actually, and a worry that we share as fans of 40K, because if they do a 40K movie, the last thing we want is for them to condense 20, 30 years worth of lore and character development into 1 2-hour film that's rushed. It is a shame. I totally agree when you said as well that the idea that the Urban Dredd was a day in the life, and it really focused on just him, and it didn't have to add in a lot of extra characters. This is chucking characters left, right, and center. A lot of them don't survive the film. So what do you do with the next one? It's
Yeah.
also, as well, it's the Michael Bay Transformers law of you keep killing off characters willy-nilly, nobody's going to care about characters by the end. Like, why would you care? Sorry, to jump off into Transformers here. Why would you care about Megatron when he's been defeated and seemingly killed at the end of the previous 3 or 4 films? You know, you needed
Yep.
these guys. If anything, you needed these senior elder statesmen, Jurgen and Max here. Even if Jurgen's guilty, which of course he is, but keep him around. Build him in the background. Have a character. Look at Mission Impossible. They've made an entire franchise out of not killing the bad guy, but bringing him back in a weird and wonderful way. Sorry, I'm going off on all
No, that's fine.
angles on this film.
The funny thing is that Griffin in this doesn't actually act much like Griffin does in the comics.
Yeah.
Because in the comics, he's a bit of a hard ass, but he's fundamentally decent. Dredd ends up killing him because he's brainwashed during the Apocalypse War and used as a propaganda piece by the Sovs.
He has no choice.
Yeah, he has quite a sad ending. Magaruda's ending is really tragic because she survives everything, becomes chief judge, and then she becomes senile.
Yeah.
And Dredd in the end takes her on one last ride into the cursed earth, but she doesn't even realize where they are. It's incredibly sad.
I think as well, Hershey's going through something similar at the moment, isn't she?
Yeah, the way her character's gone through, because I've read the first volume of my 2080 is weird because I've not actually picked it up for like 6-7 years now, and before I bought it weekly for like 20 years, and I'd caught up on a lot of stuff. But I read the first arc of Hershey's own strip set after she, shall we say, retires, and it's pretty tough stuff. And it's interesting because Hershey's the character. She initially becomes chief judge because Dredd doesn't want it.
Yes.
And she's the next option. And then she loses. I can't remember. I think she resigns after one incident. Dredd could have had the job again, and he declines once more. And it goes to basically I think his name's Dan Francisco. He's the Big Meg's. He's the Justice Department's propaganda piece. Kind of like the friendly face of the Justice Department. And it's just hilarious that he then gets co-opted by his number 2, and Hershey takes the job back at the end. And when she starts making choices that Dredd doesn't like, she tears him a new one.
Yeah.
And she says, "You didn't want this job, remember? So stop getting on my case about how I'm doing things."
To be a chief justice is not to be liked by everyone. It is to make the decisions whether Joe likes it or not.
Oh God, no.
I'm gonna state here for the record, I think this long walk is a terrible idea. I think that in a society where you need every chief judge, I think the equivalent of not an OAP home in the Cursed Earth, but a retired judge or judges who cannot do their duties properly, be assigned to the cadet school and teach the next level of cadets. Don't send them out into a place where they're just going to get picked off.
The funny thing is, the long walk's a choice. It's never been pitched as a punishment.
Yeah.
It's something that it's normally only ever a street judge that takes it as an option. And it's normally judges who they don't feel they've reached a point where they feel that they're losing the edge to be a force, for an effective force on the street, and they're becoming a liability to their colleagues.
Is it? I've got to be a bit crude here, but is it an ego-saving version of suicide?
A little bit, because the thing to remember is
There's an element of you're going to die, you just want it to be on your terms.
there's a bit of that. The thing to remember also is that the world of Mega City 1 is one where every resource is really, really restricted. I mean, you've seen the amount of space Mega City 1 takes up. That's actually a really tiny area when you look at the rest of the continental United States.
Yeah.
And that, you've got the big techs and Mega City 2 on the Pacific coast. They're the only cities left in North America. There's no breadbasket. Everything, I mean, there's a reason they send people to recycle.
Yeah.
They're not being subtle about things. Everything outside the city is lethal. And so there's a choice where I think it comes to a point where it's one of the cases where I'm willing to stand to be corrected, but I'm sure there's something I read where the long work originated as a way for judges to still be useful, going out and taking law to the lawless, whilst not being a drain on the city that they don't feel they can serve as efficiently as they used to, and to create space for those coming up ranks below them as well.
It's you're, as you say that, I think you're right. I think it achieves a balance of allowing someone a choice in a society that doesn't offer many choices.
Yeah.
And it's probably about as much courtesy and respect as they will get in any structure. Amanda Santi is, by the way, overplaying it massively, but of course he has to, because he has to establish himself as someone who can match up to Stallone.
Yeah.
We have to remind folks as well that really, yes, Stallone is playing Dredd, but the problem is even at this time in his career, Stallone himself is the massive draw. People are looking at this and just seeing Stallone. Even if he had worn the helmet, people would know it's him underneath. So it's a little frustrating, because from about this point on, you're essentially now dealing with Stallone in an action film and not Judge Dredd. It just waters down.
It does, and it's a real shame that, because in the costume, everything we've seen him as Dredd. I think, like I say, after that point though, he is just Stallone in another action movie, and you can understand why, because he was still a big draw at this point. His star had. I mean, this was kind of like. I want to say this was after Stop on My Mom or Shoot, but he hadn't really had that many failures at this point.
No, he was still a marquee name. The rot hadn't stuck in.
Yeah, it was pre-Copland.
Yep.
Which reminded people that, oh wait, no, he can act. He did write Rocky and win an Oscar for it, so he's not a man who's not good at his craft, but he found a place. He found a place in a brand that was very successful for him, so he could play to it. And if you have Stallone in a movie, you're never going to hide his face.
No, this is the truth. Before the Angel Gang kick in too much, it's worth noting that, of course, Rob and Stallone had worked on a movie before, which was Demolition Man. Demolition Man, Rob had been hired without a script. He'd been hired with nothing to do, or he felt he had nothing to do. And he had a chat to the producer, Joel Silver, and Joel simply said, look, don't worry about it. We've got you here. You're just going to improv. And so a lot of Demolition Man, from Rob's perspective, was him improving. So Stallone's in this situation where He needs to somehow make this dark drama, which has shockingly little genuine humor, and somehow make it light. And he's sharing a lot of his scenes with someone, because Stallone is going to be Stallone and push his weight around, who he can push to act over the top and be a bit silly. In fact, I believe even in either this scene or the scene later, like Rob even does an impersonation of Stallone saying, "I am the law."
Yeah.
But that's the thing. It's not Dredd. He's doing an impersonation of Stallone.
Yes.
And if you think about it, everything you know about Stallone, he has got a big ego. That's unfortunately the way it is in Hollywood. But do you really think someone with Stallone's ego would let somebody on screen with him overact him constantly if he didn't specifically want it?
That's a very fair point. Yeah.
And that's the thing. People go, "Oh, he was doing all this noise and gooning to the camera and making a big show and being all over the top." It's like, yes, but Stallone is right there in the scene with him. He's letting that happen because he's trying to please the producers. And the producers have the core scene. By the way, that wilderness shot looks very much like Masters of the Universe with those guys there.
It really does, doesn't it?
And again, remember, family-friendly film. Bring your kids to the film, ladies and gentlemen, so you can see a soldier shoot a survivor for the crime of surviving a crash.
Yeah. Oh. It's very Judge Dredd.
Yes.
But it's not very PG, sadly.
So what is it about the Angel Gang? Why were they picked for this? Because I have to admit, even at the time, I wasn't too familiar with them.
I mean, I kind of was, but I'd read a bit of The Judge Child, where and that's where they do, several members of the gang do play a bigger role. I think because of Mean, he is one of Dredd's more iconic foes, one of the more distinct visual appearances. And man, this is actually a really good take on it, to be fair.
Do you know who helped in the designs for this version of Mean?
Go on.
Chris Cunningham, Aphex Twin. So if you've ever seen Come to Daddy on YouTube, and believe me, folks, it has a very different meaning in a Chris Cunningham video. That explains some of this. I believe he only did some early concept pieces. He wasn't heavily involved. But at the time, I remember a lot of the production for this and the promotion for this was talking about just how good Mean looked. And Mean turns up in, I think it's Judgment on Gotham, isn't it? The Batman Dredd crossover. And he's quite funny in it.
Yeah, I mean, Mean, when they first had the Angel Gang in their initial appearances, they're actually generally terrifying because they're cannibals. They're cannibals who live in the cursed earth. Most of them die fairly quickly, but Mean and one of his other brothers, who's actually the worst member of the clan, do crop back up. And Mean, although he does die, he does come back and has some very interesting stuff happen to him. He's kind of a fascinating character because he's kind of sad, really, because they did this to him because he was quite gentle.
Yeah.
And they couldn't beat him into being like the rest of them, so
they hardwired him.
Yeah. With that dial and all that. And it's really quite sad. But I think partly it's because Dredd as a character, he does tend to go through his villains quite regularly. Although he has had many recurring villains over the years, a lot of them are either very arc specific.
Yeah.
They're in their impact could have come sooner, and so we're seeing more of the history play out later on, or they would just have been massively impractical for a film at this time, not without a massively bigger budget. I mean, you have the whole the robot rebellion.
Yeah.
That is a good chunk of, I think, the late 70s through to the early 80s. And there's some good stuff in there, but it would never have worked on film. Judge Death, the most iconic Dredd villain. I still have no idea how they would ever do Death. I mean, to be fair, we're at a point now where they could do it because both Carl Urban and Oliver Tilby are old enough. It's been so long since Dredd that they're now close to the right ages.
To
do it. But it's still a very heavy concept.
Also, as well, the concern is that is it Taika is he still doing Dredd? I know it was talked about. I think the time we recorded the Urban one, I think they'd only just released the news that Taika was interested in doing a Dredd project, but nobody was quite sure, and it has gone suspiciously quiet for both that project and anything involving Taika since then.
Yeah, a bit of the shine's gone off Taika, sadly.
Yeah.
And a chunk of it's a bit of his own making in some ways.
Yes, unfortunately.
But
you live by the sword, you die by the sword. In Taika's case, he became well known for the quirky take, his comedic touches when it came to his films, but that only works to a certain point. And every director's seen this. You can have too much of a good thing. Yeah. Unfortunately, the Hollywood machine pushes you to do more and more and more. And so sometimes actors end up becoming almost a parody of themselves because they just think, well, more of this style will work. Because if I'm, I don't know, 20% dumb in this scene and I make 100 million profit, then maybe I should be 60% dumb in this scene and make 3 times as much. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a shame, really, because I do think he could do the World of Dredd reasonably well, but
yeah. I should probably point out at this point, before we lose Max, a really nice touch by Dredd was to make sure that him and Armand both wore contacts that matched Max's eyes.
Yeah.
So it would enhance the familial connection that they had. And again, that's something that Stallone doesn't need to do. And back then, it was contacts. It wasn't CGI, like Mystique in the X-Men now. And they weren't exactly nice things to wear. No. So for him to wear those during the shoot, again, it shows that he really did want to make something out of this.
Well, the thing is, he is a bit of a comic nerd, is Stallone. For all he has some very unfortunate, shall we say, personal opinions, let's leave that.
And vices.
Yep, let's just put a pin in that for a moment. But he is a comic book fan. I mean, he has a Green Lantern tattoo.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine he'd have, like you say, worn contacts, gone to the lengths with wearing a costume. I mean, that Dredd costume, although he doesn't wear a massive amount, that's a lot of costume to put yourself through.
Yeah. And this set as well, this set did take its toll on a lot of the actors. There are a lot of accidents. Have you seen the outtake of Rob Schneider falling down the stairs?
I don't think I have.
I'm going to put it on the front of this video because it's available in so many places, it won't be an issue. But Rob falls down some stairs and he lands on his face. And I'm not joking, by the way. He lands on his face. No other part of his body hits the floor first. It's just his face. I'm amazed he didn't get a serious concussion. I'm amazed nobody laughed. But yeah, and it even shows off as well that I think he got a cut and he needed some stitches. And these guys went through it. So they were really pushing the physical side as well as, the comedy, which again, we're still seeing shockingly little of. And when you hear the music as well, Silvestri did such a good job. And you have a scene like this as well with Justice. This is not a family-friendly movie, which makes me wonder why the script for this was ever approved in the first place. And no wonder when Stallone, in the making of documentary, he literally at one point holds the script and goes, yeah, when you get a script like this, you've got to do a lot of work in it to try and get it to fit. And I'm like, yeah, no shit, Sherlock. The script that they came up with does not fit a family-friendly film. And unfortunately, the poor guy trying to fix it, he can't. It's too late. The director's against him as well. This is beautiful stuff. If it had been played as I'll tell you what, if this had been a serious Copland-style Dredd, it would have done nothing at the box office, but my goodness, would it have become a cult hit?
Oh, absolutely.
In fact, I've literally thought that in the moment, and I thought, yes, have that. And you've also got the shot of like Lady Justice. It's just incredible. And against all of this, yeah, then the decision to go full comedy just feels a little bit frustrating. Oh, can I break up the mood? Because I know we're being serious. Can I tell you some true stories from
Please
Dredd?
do.
Okay. During the shooting of Judge Dredd, a lead character, whose name might have an S in it, lost his watch. He believed that someone at Pinewood had stolen it. Pinewood at the time didn't have CCTV. He was so annoyed, he threatened to quit the film and cause chaos if Pinewood Studios didn't install CCTV. When I worked at Pinewood in 2000, that CCTV was still up. It was barely used. And when I asked about it, I was told that story. Also, by the time they finished putting it together, the lead character, who might have had several S's in his name, found his watch. He'd lost it. He'd put it in the wrong coat. And the studio had gone to all this fortune of putting in security based on an actor not knowing where his own personal items are. That lead actor as well got into his head that he quite liked playing golf. So, in the spirit of team bonding, a bunch of the grips, the sparks, and the electricians created I think it was a 9-hole like putting green. And the lead actor said, oh, that's really nice of you. That's great. And then made a rule that only he and his guests could play golf on it. So the sparks, the chips, and all of the other, like the regular grunts on a film set. And I say that as someone who's been there. There are hundreds of them, especially on a film like this. They all banded together. They had a word with the Pinewood management, who obviously were quite miffed with certain lead actors after the CCTV incident. They managed to get a spare stage that wasn't doing anything, and they turned it into an 18-hole putting green. And it was for the express use of everyone bar a certain lead actor. I believe he never kicked off about it because he just thought, well, that's just desserts. Another example where he didn't answer back as well is a curse of being on a film set is that you might have radio mics. Radio mics are microphones on you, unsurprising, but what you can forget to do is take them off. And then you go into your trailer and you're technically connected to the set.
Yeah.
A certain lead actor who was getting rather cozy with a hair and makeup lady happened to leave his mic on during a time when relationships with some of the crew weren't so great. Amongst several comments and phrases heard, the 2 words "spank me" was noted more than once. The next day, the lead actors walk onto set and many of the crew are wearing t-shirts that say the word "spank me" on it. The lead actor that was involved in this situation decided to say nothing, but admitted it was a bit of a good joke.
Yeah.
There's a couple more later on, but yeah, there was a lot going on. Also, as well, Danny Cannon has a tradition. At the beginning of each shoot, he goes on to set, he gets all the cast and crew together, mostly the crew. He stands on top of a large box and he tells everybody, I am the boss. The buck stops with me. I am the guy in charge. You're all working, but I'm the guy it goes through. I'm the one who's making the decisions here. It's a mantra for him. It's a tradition for him. I actually had to go and get this checked out to make sure it was right. But yes, my friend was right. He does do this and he's proud of doing this. However, he'd only done one small film before. doing this in front of hundreds of sparks, grips, plasterers, electricians, you name it. They were taking bets on how long he would last before he was fired. And the problem was as well, with the grueling schedule and with a lot of night shoots, a lot of recreational substances made their way onto the set.
Yeah.
It was a shame, but there we go. Sorry, I think that's all my crazy stuff. There's one little thing later, and that's it.
Fair dues. You know, I do actually like Commander Sunday's casting in versus Rico, because
it's good.
He's not as physically imposing as Stallone, because at this point not many people were, but he sells you on basically being a dark mirror of Stallone's version with the slightly crazy eyes and all that. It works, you know?
It works, yeah. And he does what he has to. This is particularly horrifying, actually, that the judges are being targeted within the halls of justice, which always still look like the Thundercat lair to me, but there we go. But it is the systematic taking down of the police over a couple of days. It does remind me a little bit of RoboCop and the struggles that their police had with this. And because we're looking at this, I've almost forgotten to mention Joan Chen. So Joan Chen plays the default woman that Hershey is allowed to kill later on. Unfortunately, that was genuinely a sort of role that came up. If you had a heroine, then you needed a evil woman for them to fight, because unlike odd films like Total Recall, where Sharon Stone went head to head with Arnie for bits, most of the time fight scenes were man on man or woman on woman. Joan Chen was hired because I think she was doing Twin Peaks at the time. I think that was it. And she had made a name for herself in Hollywood. She did say, though, that this was one of those real typical, they just want to hire an Asian actor for this role. And her character arc is so weird. It just flips on a dime. But she's never said anything bad about the film. And the only thing that she's said since is she's glad that nowadays you have much more roles more freely available for people of all backgrounds, which is good.
Absolutely. One of the things about this film's plot that's weird is it's basically smashing together like 4 separate story arcs.
Yeah.
So you've got the Rico story, which is really just taking Rico's name. His story in the actual comic it's smaller and I'd say more interesting as well. You've got the arc with the Cursed Earth, which, again, in the comics, most of the time when the Cursed Earth's involved, that becomes a whole thing of its own right.
Yeah.
They've spent years just on Cursed Earth arcs. You've got the clone, the Judder arc. Griffin is effectively... He's not really Griffin in this. He's more Judge Cal, the Mad Judge, than anything else. That's its own thing as well. Yeah. I mean, there's bits and pieces they've drawn from like the variety platter of Dredd stories up to this point. And it does feel a bit weird as a result.
Okay, then. If you could choose one of those stories to have been the sole focus of this film, which would you have chosen and why?
Ooh. You know what? I might possibly have gone with Block War.
Nice.
Because that's a story that starts off fairly small. You have Dredd and Judge Giant, the senior, investigating or trying to stop this quite major outbreak of block wars that's happening. They learn that it's actually because of a Sov block agent. And that's what leads to, if I remember rightly, that is kind of the opening phases of what becomes the Judge Child quest, and then into the Apocalypse War. So that gives you the beats there to work with.
Yeah, it's a good springboard movie.
Yeah, it shows you the judges as investigators, and in quite a brutal environment. That's something to remember as well. All of these megacity blocks have their own defense forces, and they're not part of the judges. They're separate organizations. They're national guard units basically for each block. That's what each of these blocks is. They're that big. They're that well populated. They have their own defense forces. It's nuts. It's great.
I'm glad you said that. I'm really glad, because this sequence hacks me off more than you can possibly imagine. Where are they running towards the fire or away from it? And why does Rob fall over and then is unable to get up? Sorry.
Yeah, it's not great, is it? It's such a tropey mess. And you're right. Why is the flame coming out of both sides of the wall?
But what really surprises me, and again, it's only, yes, I've done some notes for this and I've spoken about this, but watching the film with that in mind now, that entire last scene is Rob showing Dredd up. Stallone is being shown up for the hypocrite he is in his own film. He's learning a small amount of a lesson. I think he even makes an apology. It's not showing Dredd off to be the huge hero. It's showing him to be a little bit more human, which is great. And I think that's what they really hope. They hope that by this point, people would have forgotten most of the bloodshed. And they'd be like, oh, yeah, I can take my 6-year-old kids to see this. They'd love to see the law in action. Yay! Innocent judge, by the way, has done nothing wrong. Nothing wrong. He's punched in the visor by a criminal. He should be shot.
Yeah.
I wonder, by the way, what the Kenner action figure set for the perps running and trying not to get flame grilled would look like. Sorry, I'm just getting a bit too sarcastic now. Can I tell you of one of the biggest hits from this film?
Sure.
Okay. So Dave Arnold was originally meant to score this film, but then he handed off to Jerry Goldsmith, who then, because this film overran, had to hand off to Alan Silvestri. However, Goldsmith did a couple of pieces of score. He just did some little tinkering around. And the one thing that he completed and handed in was the music that they used for the trailer. And if you ever listen to the trailer, it is buried in effects and there's a lot of stuff over the top of it. But it became one of the most popular trailer themes in Hollywood. So after Dredd in 95, it was then in The Phantom 96, Lost in Space used it really well in 98, Inspector Gadget in 99, and I think it even turned up in Vertical Limit in 2000 and Paycheck in 2003.
Huh.
It's made, I imagine Goldsmith's made more money for it every time it's been used. So it's probably his biggest ever paycheck. And it's for a film that he technically didn't score.
That's kind of funny.
I love, this is where the payoff by both using the same contacts pays off. That little shot where they look at each other. And the thing is, it sells it so effortlessly. It's perfect.
They do kind of work as mirrors of one another, you know?
Yeah. He needed to have shot himself a little bit less directly. He's probably fractured the bone in his arm.
Yeah.
It's not a good thing. He should be able to use... He's a lawman. He should be able to hold a gun, for God's sake. Sorry, ranting at Jürgen there. My apologies, sir.
It sucks because he's normally so good in everything and so competent.
These are the steps. These are the famous steps. So, yes, after this recording, I will show you where Rob just completely face planted down those steps. And to everyone else, you will have seen this at the beginning, so you're welcome. All the way through this, though, these sets have this lovely architecture. It mirrors what's on the bikes. I would call it brutalism. I don't know if anyone else would disagree. Maybe elements of, now I forgot. Barbican. There we go. The Barbican
Yes,
Centre in London.
yeah.
There's a lot of that. There's also bits of Art Deco. Really, really nice. Fantastic. Okay, I'm going to ask you to talk about anything else because Rob is about to go on a 5-minute annoying
Run of
overacting
screaming.
masterclass.
Yes,
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me.
As he does a perfect orgasm face.
Oh God, I hadn't realised that. Ugh.
And also the line where he admits that he's just cacked himself, so that's nice. The look of this film, I think has held up pretty well over the years. There's a lot of compositing. You know, they've done a lot of these shots green screen, and there's a little bit of effects in there. There's a lot of model work, but it does look really good.
It does, doesn't it? It holds up surprisingly well. I don't know about you, but I actually saw this at the cinema.
Did you?
Yeah, I went and saw this at the. I was quite keen for this This is around the time I'd started buying SFX magazine, and it was quite a regular. They pushed this film quite heavily in their features in the run up to its release. And even though it scored fairly poorly, I still went and saw it, and yeah, I actually enjoyed myself. But then I hadn't really read a lot of Judge Dredd at that point.
I suppose in many ways you'd be the target audience then, so you would be interested in that sort of genre, but you wouldn't necessarily know every facet of the character.
Yeah, I mean, I was more of a Marvel guy.
Very quickly.
Go on.
I'll come back to that crash in 2 seconds. Sorry, as you were, D.
No, I was more of a Marvel guy at this point. I'd gone into X-Men. Well, I'd gone from Transformers to X-Men. I was starting to read more of the non-X-Men Marvel stuff.
Yeah.
And like Marvel UK.
Nice.
But
the superior Marvel.
But I'd only read bits of 2000 AD over the years. And I didn't really get into it until I think it was probably when Nikolai Dante took off that I really started buying it regularly.
Nice.
Even before that, I think when they did the first big reboot and they got rid of Tharg, replaced him with the Men in Black, which was not a great period, but I've got a soft spot for a lot of material in that time. But it was around the time this came out. So there was a chunk of tie-ins to everything. But I never actually bought the tie-in comic. I read it a couple of times, but never bought it. Weird.
Jumping back to that crash.
Go on, yeah.
So you saw a Lawmaster bike go into a booze shop. What you won't realize is because of the chaotic nature of some of the production, sometimes props are props built by prop people. Sometimes they're just the real object. They ended up staging that bike going into that shop, and the shop was full of real booze in real glass bottles. Now, they were very, very careful with it, and it was one of the more dangerous sets, so they locked off remote cameras, all of that stuff. And, it works perfectly. However, the production had treated the props like props. And one thing you do with props is you get a lot of backups. And so the props, who were very friendly with my friend, went over to him and went, "We've got literally a couple of vans worth of spare booze that we'd bought to do multiple takes of this shot. And they've got it in like the first or second take. So if you and a couple of other choice people want to give us a small amount of money, we can furnish you with a van's worth of free booze." And that's exactly what happened. And he said, I got home and my missus was like, what are you doing? It's like, I'm unloading stuff. Where'd you get that? Mega City One.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh, Joan Chen, by the way. Joan Chen's character arc is doesn't like Amanda Santi, doesn't like him, still doesn't like him, thinks he's a psycho, and now he's just gone and grabbed a load of blood and he's doing some weird stuff with genetics, and she doesn't like him. It's very important you keep this character arc in mind, because it will change slightly for no apparent reason shortly.
Yeah, it's it's odd. It's a shame because it's Joan Cheney. She's a great actress. Bit of a shame to waste her for.
They didn't know what to do with a lot of actors and actresses at the time, unless they fit into certain stereotypical roles. I mean, Stallone is a good example of this because he has tried to push the envelope. He's tried to do different things. I mean, I won't say everyone will joke about Stop or My Mum Will Shoot, because most people listening to this are probably going to be at least a decade younger than this, and they won't even know that this film existed. But it was just embarrassing comedy after embarrassing comedy when Stallone tried to do comedy, but at least he tried it.
Yeah, and same thing with Schwarzenegger, to be fair. They wanted to try and broaden their appeal.
Oh, we have a Joan Chen character development moment. You know, she didn't like Amanda Santi. She likes him now.
Well, now they're sipping drinks, and it does feel like we've missed a scene with these guys, doesn't it?
It does, and again, these guys film stuff. I've said this to a few people actually when we're talking about films. The actors they're told in many situations to act a certain way, and of course they're directed by a director. That's why the director is there after all. And I know that sounds really silly to say that, but they're doing stuff in the moment on the day. They have no control over how those performances are edited together. And you're absolutely right, Dee. If something is then taken out, a scene removed or something else, then there's no context for a change. The actor ends up looking silly, but it's not their fault. I should note, by the way, this is a kids' movie with a Happy Meal. Kids' movie with a Happy Meal. Robot, tear his limbs off and leave his head for last. And I don't know if you're aware of this, Dee, but they did film this. As in...
Of course they did.
The version where he rips the arms off. And that was why the executives started getting really worried. Sorry, I've harped on about this, but I think at the end as well, when the credits are running, I'll run over the whole thing again. But it just means, to me anyway, that when I look at this film, I look at two guys trying to change the tone of a film that they can't change. The gruesome stuff as well, is being shot when Stallone is not on set. He has no control over it.
Yeah. It's a good point.
And everything else is so good. The design, the sets, it just looks lovely. And this robot is just horrifying.
I mean, I hadn't been aware of some of the stuff you've mentioned about Synergy's deal and all that. But now knowing that, it makes sense for what Stallone tried to do and to get Schneider in on to help him do. It explains some of those choices. And the thing is, I don't blame Danny Cannon, because clearly he came into this with his own vision of what he wanted to do for a character that he clearly had he came to it as a fan of Dredd. He wanted to make the best Judge Dredd movie he could. I'd say it's on Synergy for, like you said, most of their team stayed in the States. What has been done? They should have had more. Well, one thing, like you say, they shouldn't have approved the script, because I cannot imagine anyone reading the script would have thought, oh yeah, that'll be PG.
Yeah.
Because bloody hell.
And even if they were as vague as hell with every violent scene, you still had a very adult tone. There wasn't a lot of humor. In fact, I doubt any of that stuff with Rob was scripted. I think it's more of his improv. And therefore, if you take that away, where was the humor they were even going for?
Yeah. I mean, this, without Schneider's humor, that's actually a really dour movie. Because you might still have had some of Stallone's one-liners, but even then, he's not that quip-heavy in this. He's quite a... I mean, in a lot of ways, this film is deconstructing Joe Dredd in a speed run. In the comics, he spent literally 50 years by this point going through a massive evolution of as a character. Where modern Dredd, yeah, they do have stories where they play him still as the ultimate super cop, but he's also softened a massive amount in his perspective and his attitude towards the public and his own department. Because he's not unaware of its flaws, and in fact, he's been the force that's tried to push, in some instances, for some significant reforms in Mega City 1. Even though he's still Joe Dredd, there's still almost a century of inbuilt behavior that he's working against. And not just study, that's just in him.
Yeah, it should be... Sorry. It's worth noting, people listening, and D, would you mind explaining this concept? But I believe Dredd ages in real time. What does that mean exactly for people who are not familiar with... Because we keep talking about Dredd and Old Man and all of this stuff.
Okay, so one of the things about 2000 AD as a comic that kind of separates it from a lot of other material is that for several of the stories, a lot of the ongoing ones mainly, for every year in our world, a year takes place in the universes, in that character's world. So even though you might have a story that takes place over multiple issues, that and could only be maybe a day or a week's activity at most, by the time you get to the end of a year, you'll have had a year in that universe, just sort of had a year in ours. So Judge Dredd, when we first meet him, he's in, I think, either his late 40s or early to mid 50s. He's the veteran cop. He's the judge. Even by that point, he has his rep. And then, so for getting on now 50 odd years, he's aged in real time.
Yeah.
Now, part of the reason he's not a doddering old man, although he is old, is that in the world of Mega City 1, they have rejuve centers, and judges quite often will get rejuve treatments, especially if, like Dredd, they're a particularly valuable resource. So, although he's actually best part of 100 years old, he's physically in his probably late 40s, early 50s, I'd say.
Okay.
They can get a bit squish with things. But even then, he's not the lone Fargo clone anymore in the world. Part of the Judder Janus project that we see here is that they were trying to clone him. It's why Dredd went off into the cursed earth originally. They came up with a scheme to get him out of the way.
Yeah.
And they used a clone of Dredd to replace him, Judge Kraken, who then became the face of this extra-dimensional invasion. It's a whole thing. It's Necropolis. If you get a chance to read it, it's great. You have Judge Dredd and Johnny Alpha kicking ass and being badasses. What else do you want? But they've introduced several others. So there was another Dredd clone more recently who adopted I say recently, it's now almost 2 decades old, who adopted the name Rico, figuring he can't be Judge Dredd because that'd get confusing. He'll be Judge Rico. And he's developed as he's literally just a younger Dredd. He's not bonkers, he's not crazy. He's had his own arc. He's developed his own bad guys.
Nice.
and people trying to track him down. He's had his own injuries that Dredd never has, which is quite funny. And then more recently, there was another one by the name of Dorman, who's actually a Fargo Judd clone who decided he didn't want to be a judge.
Yeah.
So he had some facial reconstruction surgery and basically joined the Planetary Militia, the Earth Defense Force. And he crops up now and then because Rico's daughter, Venna, who's been a recurring character, this Rico's daughter, I should say, not the more recent Rico, Venna Dredd is Joe's niece. And she's had a fairly interesting story of her own. But again, she makes a point of trying to keep Joe and Rico and Dorman in her life. Because she knows that they all need, although they may not think it, they need a bit of family.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, they could end up like her father.
Or they could end up like these two.
Yeah. There's some fun stuff they play with. It doesn't always hit, but it's good to have it.
Every 90s film had to try and find a more realistic way of having someone fall from a skyscraper.
I mean, points for not having Armand looking up at the camera as he fell there.
Hans Kruger style. And of course, Joan Chen gets killed by Diane Lane because that was her entire role in the film. I should note, by the way, one of the voice actors that you might not have realized is in this. The voice of the Hall of Justice, and I believe even the tech support in that building as well, was Adrienne Barbeau.
Huh.
Which is a nice nod to Escape from New York and other classics. And yes, folks, we did talk through the final climactic fight, but it was nothing that you didn't expect anyway. Bad guy mouths off, Stallone fights back, the clones awaken, but their entire scene was cut out, so we never know what happened to them, and I think that was probably pretty gory. Yeah. And now we have a repeat of, D, what you were talking about. At several points, Mega City 1 has asked Judge Dredd to be its chief. And he every time goes, no, I'm a chief, I'm a street judge. Oh, by the way, coming up is Rob's lines. And in fact, the stuff he's saying now is stuff without Stallone in shot. And you'll notice that Rob is once again back to being actually quite funny and quite normal. It is shocking. This is like his first scene. He's saying one-liners, but they're not over the top. There you go. Nice and simple. But you never know what happens to him. Even though he was shot in the gut at close range by a very large robot, it should have split him in two. But there we go.
Oh, yeah. Especially the size of those cannons in the ABC Warriors arms.
So when you saw this film, and these credits rolled, and Stallone drove in his very unwieldy motorcycle to the top of a very, very high drop with no way that he could feasibly reverse the bike, as you will see very, very shortly. And therefore, the only thing he could do is either leave the bike there, look there. Where's he going to go from there? He can't even reverse. But when these credits, and of course it's a beautiful sunset over the city, and it does look beautiful. But were you elated? Were you disappointed? Were you frustrated? Did you think, oh, that's ruined it? What were your thoughts?
I thought I'd enjoyed a moderately entertaining action movie. Not something I'd have gone back to over and over again, but it was fine. Not brilliant, but it was entertaining.
Okay. No, that's it. I think even the fans that were over the moon to see this walked away with a lot of that extra shine sort of dulled down. It felt like they'd sort of been taken for a ride, and it wasn't their fault. It's because let's face it, fans a couple of decades later felt the same thing about Dredd, not in terms of the quality of the film, but just how it had been treated by the studio. In Dredd's case, it was just
Yeah.
about its release. But in this case, it was just about the tone that they never quite got right.
Absolutely. And as I said before, now that you've explained something that I didn't realize about Synergy and all the stuff they had lined up for it and their plans, it makes a lot more sense.
Oh, well, then let me make a little bit more sense for you, because after this, Burger King saw the finished cut and they sued the studio. And because they can't advertise it for meals.
No.
And then Kenner saw it and they sued the studio because they couldn't promote it either. And because the studio couldn't use any of the footage to promote the film, that's when they settled on the misguided idea of using comic books and comic book format. But again, that's why it didn't reach the audience that it was meant to reach. It just failed completely.
See, I remember this was the time when Kenner were doing action. They'd done action figures of the Terminator. I think they'd been wanting to do the RoboCop figures, and they were putting out toys based on Aliens and Predator. They could have done a toy line based on this and made it sell. I reckon.
Yeah, I'm still a little confused. I know that at the end of this interview that I alluded to earlier, that the guy mentioned D'Souza, I believe his name was, that even years later when he pitched something to some studios that included Disney, that they loved his pitch. They actually gave him a standing ovation. They thought it was brilliant. And he got home and a guy phoned him up who was the head of the studio and said, look, it's not going to happen, mate. And he was like, well, why? It's like, well, we went upstairs and we were all buzzing about your idea. And we told the chiefs in charge and we said, this is a great idea. And the guy went, who's it from? And they said, oh, it's this D'Souza guy. And he went, what? Him? No, I had to deal with Burger King suing us for bloody Judge Dredd. He's never working here again. And apparently he did do some work for Disney, but the damage that it did behind the scenes. And again, if it was going to be an adult film, they would have changed their line. They would have reined it back in. But I think they were looking to go all, they thought it was going to be like He-Man, but just with cops. It was going to be Brave Star, basically. So very frustrating.
Or even Cops, which was a line of its own right.
There you go.
There's a deep cut for some of you. And I don't mean the follow along show. There was a genuine cartoon called Cops that was basically G.I. Joe as cops, effectively.
Good grief.
It was very weird.
Well, there we go. That's the next Fluffenbusters sorted.
I've been filling my new hard drive with, shall we say, I've been establishing more of an archive of some classic shows.
Oh no!
I may now have all of Ulysses 31 and Jason the Wheeled Warrior.
I don't think I've ever seen Jace.
Have you not?
And Ulysses was a frustrating one because I remember I watched the whole series and then the final episode my dad phoned and I couldn't get him off the phone and I missed the final episode.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
I was sodding furious. Oh, I should mention, sorry. So this was not long after The Crow came out. And a lot of people remember the Cure song from The Crow. They also did the song to the credits in this film. And it's well respected. A bit of a sad one, though. One of the other... Oh, beautiful moment. They acknowledged the character, the writer, and the artist in the credits for each of the characters featured in this movie.
That's actually very cool.
It's really nice.
Yep.
And for film financiers out there, Chemical Bank is now known as JP Morgan, or it's a part of JP Morgan nowadays. So, and I used to work for Lee Lighting. Yay! So, but I've now forgotten what I was talking about. I got too excited about seeing Lee Lighting. Music. Yes. They also got the Manic Street Preachers to do a song for this, and it was called Judge Yourself. But it was the last one with their guitarist Richie. It was the last song they recorded. So because of his unfortunate disappearance, after that, they did. I don't think they either had the heart or the press made it that they felt unable to actually provide the song for the soundtrack, and it took years before it was released to the public.
Understandable.
Yeah.
So,
but that's been fun. So in closing, so you have a film that was designed to be a PG family-friendly movie. They then hired in
a franchise launch.
They then hired in a director who wanted to make it a hard R or even X-rated film. They brought in a star and a co-star that thought they were making a family-friendly film in Stallone and Rob Schneider. And those two actors realized the tone the film was going in, the tone it was setting, and the direction the film was going in far too late. They tried to pivot, and they pivoted by trying to inject as much comedy into the latter half of the film, even though it didn't fit, it didn't work, and it made everyone look a little bit silly. But they didn't do it because of ego. They didn't do it because of personal pride. They did it because they wanted to honor the production that was making the film. And that is why Stallone and Schneider are innocent of the crime of Judge Dredd, 1995.
I'll give you that one. That's fair. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'll say for most blame probably lies with studio for not having a better control of things, because they should have known when they had the script what they were getting.
Yeah.
They should have had the director full. I mean, they should have either made it in the States or had more people there with the director to make sure he knew what they wanted.
They should have really employed, because they've got executive producers. They should have had an executive producer who was enough of a bear to boss around. Okay, maybe I should rephrase that. Executive producers are considered bears in the sense that they protect the people making the film. They smooth over any issues. So that's why you tend to have like Steven Spielberg as an exec producer, or maybe an actor, or in the case of the upcoming Warhammer shows that have been pitched but still not detailed, you've got Henry Cavill as an exec producer. He's going to put his name around and go, look, I'm the guy in charge. So if you've got any problems, I'll deal with you and I'll try and smooth out any difficulties. They should have had their exec producers come on set and go, right, for a start, when they brought in the director, what sort of tone are you going for? Because they had a choice of a lot of directors and they chose this guy for a reason. But then afterwards as well, regular communication. And if it wasn't working, even if it was the case of, right, we'll go back to the studio and say, look, I know you want to do PG. We're doing 18. In this case, by the way, I know we're running over the film. Sorry, folks, but it's worth noting when this film went up for grading in the States, it came back as an X.
Oh.
And it went back 4 or 5 times. And I believe the last time they did enough to turn it into an R, which is the equivalent of an 18 over here. And over here, they made more cuts to it. And I think it was a 15. I think
it would have been, because I was 15 when
there
this
we go.
came out.
So but that was because they made more cuts to it. So, and the thing is as well, it's difficult to remember the version that you saw in the cinema. So there could have been some subtle stuff cut out. There's often stuff added back in for the subsequent releases and digital. But the thing was, the guy, the exec producer should have been able to see this and go, look, we're never going to be able to do the Burger King thing or the Kenner thing at this kind of style. But tell them we're doing an adult style film in the vein of RoboCop. Especially with Kenner, we've still gotten in. With Burger King, they won't like it. They'll pull out, but that's fine. We can do it quietly behind the scenes. And hey, we'll give them a good deal on the next big family-friendly film that we know will work with them. That's how you manage something like this. The fact that D'Souza only said about them being sued for the film recently, and I'd never heard about this, shows you how much stuff is kept out of the spotlight, how much they protect these films. But it is fascinating.
Yeah, because I never heard any of this around the time the film came out, or even until you've mentioned it tonight. And there was a point where I was really following. I read it. I collected SFX damn near religiously for best part of 2.5 decades. I was reading. There was a point where I was going through Empire, Total Film.
Oh, we've all done it.
Starburst, Dreamlog, all those mags. And when I worked for Borders, we were getting an all the high-end American film mags. When I was at uni, I was going through Sight and Sound. Anytime one of those came in.
Did you ever go through American Cinematographer?
I think I did read a few issues.
I'm in one of those. Really? Yeah. One day I'm going to buy it. I don't know if it's just it was a European print, but for a film that I worked on, I think it was the Tomb Raider group photo. I think we ended up in, I think it was the American Cinematographer with Tom Hanks's. Oh no, it was Artificial Intelligence. It was the Kubrick thing. So yeah, the Spielberg Kubrick joint. But there we go. Anyway, I'm waffling. Probably shouldn't do that. Did enough of that on the Lord of the Rings. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. I hope this has been a little bit more factual and intellectual from me.
I've certainly learned some stuff.
Yay!
So thank you for that.
No worries. And, well, hopefully you'll join us for another recording in the near future.
Indeedy.
Until then, folks, you take care and we'll speak to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.